Conflict. The conflict perspective on the war Native Americans had to fight, such as forcing the Native Americans out of their land. Functionalists, the Native Americans took care of themselves until settlers moved into their area and disrupted their balance and way to live. Interactionalists, this would be the Native Americans and the community around them, like when settlers came and they were pushed to their reservations.
The Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was passed in 1988, which allowed Indian tribes to regulate gaming activity. These gaming facilities range from full casinos to bingo halls, lotteries, and poker. The allowing of these casinos to operate brings money to the tribe and their government. It also brought back younger adults who moved away from the reservations. The casino's profits are not taxable, and the first Indian casino was built in Florida in 1979. When people think Native Americans, they often think about Christopher Columbus, because we were taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America. But when he first arrived, he thought he was in the East Indies and started to call the natives Indians. But that is not correct, because the Native Americans were already here. In Colorado, Native Americans were being attacked by the U.S. Army. This was called the Sand Creek Massacre, and it resulted in a lot of Native American women and children dying.
In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which empowered the federal government to take native-held land east of Mississippi and forcibly relocate Native people from their homes in Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, Florida, and Tennessee to Indian Territory, and now what is Oklahoma. The Indian Removal Act caused a trail of tears, resulting in exposure of disease, starvation, smallpox.
President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Indian Civil Rights Act into law in April of 1968. It's similar to the Bill of Rights, guaranteeing freedom against the federal government for the Indians, but it also restricts them from passing laws that violate certain individual rights.
Now here is a Q&A.
How do you feel about Christopher Columbus Day being a deserved holiday? And what were you taught about him in school?
I feel like it shouldn't be a reserved holiday at all. And the reason why I feel that way is because Christopher Columbus did not find this country. This country was already founded by the Native Americans, and I feel that you can't have a person find a country if it was already founded, okay?
Period. Next question. When you think of a Native American, how do you see them in your mind? How do you interpret them, or how they look, how they act? What are your thoughts about that?
So me personally, or what society views them as?
You personally.
I feel like they're really humble. I mean, I feel like in the Native American community, they're very humble, and even with a lot of the things going on in that community and all the attacks that they experience, I don't really hear like a lot of uproar from that community. But in the Black community, any type of problem, we are protesting, honey. We are in the streets. We are protesting. We're outside of schools. But I feel like they're a really good community, but I just don't see them doing that same type of activism. They're really humble and quiet.
If you do know, could you tell me how many American Indian and Alaskan Native tribes are federally recognized?
I'm gonna guess around 30.
It's actually 550.
Ooh, wow, I was way off.
Do you know what the Indian Removal Act did?
I feel like I've heard of it.
It required government to negotiate removal treaties fairly of Native Americans.
Okay.
But Andrew Jackson and his government did not follow the laws and did whatever they wanted to them after he made the law. Do you know who led the Indian Removal Act? That is President Andrew Jackson. What is a rite of passage to you?
To me, a rite of passage is something that a young child has to go through in order to, I guess, reach the next level of adulthood, I guess.
Hi, my name is Josh. Hello, Josh. So we're going to ask you some questions today about Native Americans. Are you fine with that?
Yeah.
All right. The first question is, do you know if Native Americans get free college?
I know if they are born on a reservation, they do. But if they don't, if they're not born on the reservation, then they do not.
Hi, Josh. So, when you think of a Native American, what do you see?
In my head, I think of someone who is, well, honestly successful, but also people who are proud of their culture and their background, and even if it is a Native American, actually whomever, I see them more as they're successful, they're proud of their culture, and they want to express it in their everyday life, and I respect that.
My name's Jose Bustamante. How's it going, everybody? Today, Jose, we're going to ask you a couple questions about Native Americans. Feel free to freely answer if you do know anything about it. So, first off, why are Indians sometimes referred to as Native Americans?
They are referred to that because they were people who lived here before, like people from before the Pilgrims came. That way they call it Native Americans.
Okay. And